Hello Cabbage fans, and welcome to another edition of Cabbages and Rants. Firstly, I would like to inform you all that I am suffering from some pretty chronic hay fever at the moment, which is why I look like rubbish. It also explains my apatheticness that's been coming on over the last couple of weeks. I don't know how much detail you can see due to the quality of my camera, but my nose is sore, my mouth is drying out, all the skin underneath my eyes is bad. Pretty much the only thing that's not happening to me right now is my nose isn't running because I'm taking an antihistamine, and that's pretty much all it's fixed. So it's even started to affect my throat today. Firstly, I have a couple of really important issues that I need to address. Number one, Callie, I've been asked by Adam to ask you to pick the topic for next week, because we're doing it in order, obviously, and he said it's your turn. Secondly, I hope everyone enjoyed Adam's punishment as much as I did, because that was very much deserved, although it has made me a little bit afraid now, so I'm going to try my hardest to avoid punishment at all costs, because I can see myself having to do some pretty nasty stuff. Number three, I have changed location slightly. I was in a room out that door, and now I'm in the spare room with my partner's computer set up to expect a few changes, and don't be too surprised if things just pop up all over the place. That's my vacuum cleaner over there, it doesn't get much love. Right, this week's topic, I think we're going with books into film, because there's a little bit more to talk about. Usually when you read a book before you watch a film, your expectations of the film are so much higher than they normally would be, and it is almost impossible to meet them. Obviously, there's the Lord of the Rings. I have read the whole Lord of the Rings book and watched all three movies countless times. I own all of them. And there were several key things that I felt were left out of the Lord of the Rings movies, but the scale of the films and the effort that Peter Jackson went to recreate the atmosphere of the books is what really makes the Lord of the Rings a good adaptation into film for me. The problem that I have most of the time with books being made into film is that when you read a book, it has an atmosphere about it and a really emotional quality, and there are so many things that you can pick up from pages that have to be portrayed differently in a film. When you can describe things with words, and the words can make you feel emotion, movies have to use different mediums to make you feel the same thing. The Lord of the Rings, I felt, did that because of the scale of the effort that was put into. Everything was written specifically to make the movie feel like the book. The characters and the makeup and everything. That was a huge background even just to the preparation of the film, and it was almost as epic as the books were themselves, and I think that's why it translated well, as opposed to things like Twilight. Now, Twilight is a good standalone film, and it's received a lot of criticism because a lot of people don't agree with the storyline, but the storyline isn't what makes the Twilight books good books. It's the emotions that you get from the books. The feel of the books was sort of replicated with the music and the choices that were made for the film. I know for a fact that when Stephenie Meyer was writing Twilight, she was listening to Muse. She took a lot of her inspiration from Muse, and then they used Muse in the film and on the soundtrack, which a lot of Muse fans hated, but it helped translate from book to film as much as people didn't like it. But the problem that I had with Twilight the film was most people who are really into Twilight read all 4 books, and there is a lot of character development that happens over 4 books. There is a lot more character development that happens in the first Twilight book than happens in the Twilight film. Because of the storyline in Twilight, people look at Edward Cullen and say, oh, he's just a stalker vampire, and they look at Bella and go, well, she's stupid falling for a stalker vampire. Really, the character development and the thought processes that are described within the book make the plot more plausible. It's a lot more believable when you're taking that journey with the character through the book, whereas in the movie it's just presented to you and you're expected to digest it all at once, and you're not as involved, I suppose. Then you've got films that come from plays, which don't always work because plays are essentially written to be staged in an area in front of you, and the fourth wall comes down, but you only see it from a certain angle. Sometimes it doesn't work well on film. There are some plays where the dialogue is a lot more involved than the actual stage directions. So The Libertine worked maybe just because Johnny Depp was in it, and Johnny Depp can do anything. If anyone is into plays, if you read the opening monologue from The Libertine, it is brilliant. It is copied word for word, I think, in the opening part of this film. So if you ever get a chance, it might even be up on YouTube. It is very much worth watching, because it sort of just highlights the injustice of being a female actress when actors get better roles. Films which I've had issues with, the Harry Potter films, for the exact reason that they fail to capture the atmosphere of the books. There is nothing wrong with the parts of Harry Potter that they put in there, except that they left too much of the important things out. The character development and the acting in Harry Potter, all of the films, was good, but there is a really wonderful, almost innocent feeling within the books, and it takes you back to your childhood and how everything's wonderful, and how, you know how when you're a kid you have these little fantasies about how the world works, and the older you get, the more you forget those things, and the more you learn about the world, the more you see how wrong you were, and how wild your imagination was. But the Harry Potter books sort of make you forget about all that, because in the Wizarding world everything's possible, and this is just the Muggle world, and it was easy to overlook your imagination in the process. There was something really magical about the way J.K. Rowling wrote, and it did not translate into film at all. It was horrible, and then in the end they sort of butchered it anyway by leaving out the bits that everyone else thought were important, and it was just horrible. The Harry Potter films, I understand why they were made, but it was blasphemy, and they never should have been. I think a lot of the problem with making films out of books these days is it encourages young people not to read the books, and you miss out on so much. And I know I sound like such a nerd when I say that, and such a scholar, and I am both of those things, so I'm not going to try and defend what I'm saying, because I think I'm right anyway. I think you need to be able to read, and you need to be able to see the difference, and then choose. If you can read a book and watch a film and acknowledge the difference, and look at the differences and contrast them, and then make an informed decision, then fine. But at the end of the day, my opinion is this: you can take a book and you can turn it into a movie, but at the end of the day, unless you are true to the book, you're just ripping off the author's work. If I wrote a book, I would want as many people as possible to be able to access it, but I would only want those people to access it on the terms that I wrote it, and the way that I wrote it, and for them to see it the way that I intended for it to be presented. And I think often that is all lost in the translation from book to film. The only exception that I've ever come across, ever, is The Notebook. I thought the film was better than the book. Do we want to debate about that? Maybe we should do that on my channel, maybe we should do it in the comments. Leave me a video response, tell me what you think. Have you ever seen a movie that was better than the book? Because as far as I'm concerned, The Notebook was only it. It was really obviously written by a man. The movie was made a little bit more realistic, less sexist views on how women should behave in and out of relationships, maybe. Well, guys, I'll see you next week, and I'll see Laura and Callie later on. I really need to upload a video onto my own channel. I'm starting to feel really bad. It's been a month. I haven't updated my channel since I started this video collab. I'm bad.
We're cabbages.